Okay, it looks like we're going. We are recording. Sorry, did you hear me?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, we are recording, so we're good to go.
Oh, great. All right, let me get started then. Julie, are you with us?
Can everybody please turn off their cameras?
Well, Julie, if you're there, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll get started. My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Vermont Cannabis Control Board. Today is January 31st, 2024, and I call this meeting to order. I just wanted to start, I needed to mention an issue that's been raised by our compliance and licensing teams. They've been fielding an inordinate number of calls, text messages, and emails with the sole question of where is my application or renewal in the pipeline? I'm empathetic to the anxiety that applicants experience and the economic position that you all are in. But every time we are responding to an email or phone call, it's taking a staff person away from the work of actually reviewing the applications, and it really does slow things down for everyone. I can certainly appreciate the need for state government to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, which means that we certainly need to be able to communicate to applicants when they're in the pipeline. But there is a difference between emails with questions that are necessary for approval, like genuine questions about the application itself, versus status emails. We're happy to answer the former, but when it comes to the latter, we've set up and published communication processes that are meant to avoid you having to call with that question, when will my application be approved? So let me review the process quickly now. So within a day of an application being submitted, we will change the status in the portal to received. And then within 3 business days of your application status will change to in review, and you should see an invitation from CSI to initiate your background check. Depending on your priority status, this initial review period may last up to 30 days, calendar days, from the original date of submission. So sometime within that 30-day calendar window, you should expect to receive an email from our licensing team through the portal that lays out any areas where your application is incomplete. And it will also include instructions on how to correct those areas of incompleteness. Once we've sent this notice, we will not pick your application back up until you have updated all the areas of insufficiency and then resubmitted the application. So this is an area where an applicant can really accelerate or delay the approval process depending on how quickly they move. Once an application has been resubmitted, you'll see a change in the status in the portal to resubmitted, and we will begin to review the changes. It sounds like it's this stage where we're getting a lot of these status phone calls and emails. So let me just say what is published in our application guidance document. Reviewing a resubmittal takes us about 14 calendar days. You know, your application is not the only one in the queue, and the team here isn't sitting around waiting for it to be resubmitted. We've moved on to other applications in the meantime, and so we give ourselves a little bit of a grace period in order to finish whatever applications we picked up in the interim, and then come back to a resubmittal. If everything looks good and you have all the other licensing prerequisites satisfied prior to our published cutoff date for that month, we will change your status once again to pending CCB review and add you to our agenda for the board meeting to approve at the next regular meeting. These agendas are, of course, published at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting, so you have some time to follow up with the staff here. at that point if you think that you should have been on the list, but you're not. I know this is new for everyone, and that applicants are investing a lot of money into this endeavor. But that really doesn't justify the 20, 30, or in a very case, 52 phone calls and emails that one applicant gave us merely checking on the status of their application. This slows things down for everyone, and it's really bordering on harassment. These timelines and statuses are clearly laid out in a guidance on the guidance page of our website. That's ccb.vermont/guidance under the link application status flowchart. So if we're outside those timeframes, or you have a legitimate question about the substance of the application, go ahead and reach out to us. But if we're in these timeframes, again, it's 30 days from the original submission and then 14 days from resubmission. Please show some restraint and let the process play out. And this is not meant as a criticism of any of my colleagues around the country, but our licensing team processes applications in a lot less time, about a third of the time as most adult use states. And our new pre-qualification process will hopefully reduce that time frame even further. So thank you to the licensing team, thank you to the compliance team, and we're all in this together. So other than that, just need to approve the minutes from our regular meeting from December 20th, 2023, and also our special meeting from January 5th, 2024. You guys had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Bryn, I'm going to turn things over to you.
So here is your executive director report for today's meeting. We're going to start out with a little bit of a reminder for everybody about what the very exciting thing that's coming in 2024, which is our new license type that was approved by the legislature during last year's session, which is the propagation cultivation license type. I just wanted to give a very brief update on because I know there are folks out there that are looking forward to being able to apply for this license type. So this slide just has it pulls directly from the statute to list what this this type of licensee will be authorized to do under the statute. And that's to cultivate up to 3,500 square feet of immature cannabis plants. Test, transport, and sell those cannabis clones and immature plants to other licensees, licensed cultivators specifically, and to test, transport, and sell cannabis seeds that meet the federal definition of hemp to licensed cultivators, retailers, or to the public. And what these licensees will not be able to do is to cultivate mature cannabis plants for the purpose of producing, harvesting, transferring, or selling cannabis to any person. So these license types will be available. The board is actually directed by the statute to begin issuing these licenses by July 1st of this year. And we are on track to do that. We've got our vendor that is supporting us in building out the licensing portal to accommodate these propagation cultivation applications. So we hope to be able to begin accepting these applications probably within the next 3 months. So stay tuned for more information on that. So with that, I'll jump into our adult use program licensing data, and we're going to start out just our first couple of slides, offer a little bit of a retrospective of 2023. just an overview, a picture of how many sort of submissions that the licensing team has received just in the 2023 calendar year. So 500 or 864 employee ID cards have been issued in 2023. 3,683 products were registered in 2023. And we've issued 303 license applications during the last year. So that's a little bit of an overview of our application numbers. And then the next slide is a retrospective on product registration submissions. So this is a little bit of a picture of what types of products are being submitted for registration. So this data will probably look familiar to everybody. We're still around 75% of those products that are submitted for registration are flower. And then it's broken down from there from, I think the next most common is extracts, and then edibles, then tinctures and topicals. You can barely see it, and it's not represented percentage. I think it's less than 1% topicals we have there. And then that dark sliver, 3%, is other products, which I believe is primarily clones at this point. So that is your retrospective of the year, and I'm going to move, unless there are any questions about that, I'm going to move into our regular reporting on starting with cultivation license.
Just be curious to see how that changes over the next year, recognizing that most markets start as a flower heavy market and move into products.
Yep.
Thereafter.
Yes, we will keep an eye on that as time goes on. So starting with our cultivation license numbers, here's the picture of total issued cultivation licenses by their type and tier. So we continue to be primarily an outdoor and mixed market. That really hasn't changed. So this is a picture of our current active licenses that are issued for each type and tier of cultivation. And a note here that if a licensee expires without renewing or renews with a change in their tier or their type of cultivation, the numbers here reflect the new currently active issued licenses. So this is intended to reflect up to the moment picture of where our licensees stand. And this slide reflects cultivation renewals by type and tier. So you can see that we are chugging along with our first year cultivation renewals. We're looking at around half of our initial first year cultivation licensees being in the door for renewal. And actually this next slide gives you a little bit of a picture of what that renewal process looks like for our cultivation licensees. So that first column on the left, initial licenses issued, sort of reflects that all of the initial cultivation license that the board issued. The next column is renewals. So that number captures all cultivation renewals that have either been issued or in the pipeline. So we are right now around halfway through the renewals process for our outdoor and mixed cultivators. And that is, we are sort of right on track since we're issuing these license types, I think all the way through August. We did close that window for applicants to apply for an outdoor mixed cultivation license at the end of April, but we continue to issue those licenses throughout the spring and the summer. So we're around halfway at this point of renewing our first sort of year of cultivation licensees. And then that column to the right shows how many of each type and tier of cultivation license has either relinquished their license or has let their license expire. And so far, about 8% of our cultivation licensees are relinquishing their license. So overall picture of cultivation licensees. And I think the next slide, I'm doing the same thing with the manufacturers. So an overall picture of our manufacturer licenses, number of issued in that first column, renewals in the middle, and then number of relinquished or expired off to the right. And here, obviously, we've got a little bit less, just where we are in the cycle. We are not quite as far along as we are for the cultivators, for the manufacturers, since we started issuing those licenses late in the summer of 2022. So we're not quite up to, the same rate that we are for cultivation. But still a little bit of an overview of where we are. And then here is the same overview summary for the rest of our license types. So the number of issued retailers, testing labs, wholesalers, and integrated licensees. The number of those licensees that have either renewed already or are in process of renewing. And then the number that have relinquished their license. And then this slide just takes a look at the relinquishment rate by the priority status. So rather than breaking it down by each individual license type, which the former slides do, this just takes a look at who is relinquishing based on their priority status. And this relinquishment rate reflects almost exactly the proportion of standard economic empowerment and social equity licensees. I'm going to keep popping through. So looking at that relinquishment, looking for the reasons for a relinquishment rate, you have seen this data before. This is just an update based on any additional licensees that have indicated they're relinquishing their license. So the numbers still continue to be primarily in that personal category. The reason given for relinquishing the license are personal reasons. And then the next slide dives in a little bit deeper, and you can see that the costs are growing. The factors given for relinquishment are primarily cost, if they're not something else, some other personal reason. Okay, so now we'll go into changes when cultivators and manufacturers are going in for their license renewal. What portion of them are changing, either the type of cultivation they're doing or what tier they are growing at or manufacturing at. So 78% are not changing. They're staying where they are as they go into the renewal process. 13% of all cultivators and manufacturers are changing a tier. So they're either moving up or down. And we'll dive into that within the next couple of slides. 6% are changing the type of cultivation that they're doing. And then 3% of cultivators are changing both the type of cultivation they're doing and their tier. So we're looking at the whole picture of cultivators and manufacturers, but some of these categories only apply to cultivators. So just diving in a little bit more deeply here, we're looking at just cultivators now and their changes that they're making upon renewal. And you can see how people are shifting. So sort of almost an even mix here of people shifting either from outdoor to mixed cultivation, mixed to outdoor, or indoor to mixed. And so far, there is nobody who has shifted from outdoor mixed to indoor. And now we're looking more closely at the license tier change. You can see the majority of folks that are making a change in their tier are increasing their tier. A small percentage are decreasing. So that this one applies to both cultivators and manufacturers. All right. I'm going to keep going unless I get interrupted with a question. So license canopy capacity, here's our sort of chart that demonstrates how much licensed canopy we have capacity. We are capable of growing here in Vermont. And this outdoor license canopy number continues to decline, and the indoor license canopy number continues to rise pretty steadily since the end of the outdoor harvest, which is very natural. So we're up about 3,500 square feet of indoor licensed canopy capacity since December.
Those are the only license types that are open right now.
That's correct. So next slide shows our comparison between capacity and utilization. And again, a reminder that the total number of licensees surveyed for this utilization percentage is still around 15% of our grow capacity. So we're making that utilized canopy percentage is a projection based on a subset of our licensees. And we're hovering around the same utilization rate for both indoor and outdoor since November. We're just around the same percentage for both. So that utilization rate is not changing much over time.
Bryn, does the licensed canopy number include the licensees that are shifting up? Like, is it a point in time or is it current?
So this number reflects our current, the amount of capacity for who we have currently licensed. So it reflects those changes in tier.
Okay,
As
thank you.
of, I think, yesterday, this was updated.
Okay.
If we're talking about tiering up, are we seeing a trend in like 1, 2, or 1 to 3 in terms of tier size? Like,
Yeah, we can dive in to that a little bit more deeply. I think the majority of our increases are tier ones, up to a tier. My guess is that it's from tier 1 to tier 2, and not a double jump, but we can dive into that.
yeah, I'm trying to think. There's obviously so many factors that go into it, right? We've got 25 people that haven't renewed or relinquished their license so far. We're only getting a couple new licensees each month, it seems, over the last couple of weeks, but people are also jumping tier sizes. So I'm just trying to get a picture of, are we losing total potential canopy that could be grown based off of how things are shifting on renewal, especially
Yes.
before we get to the outdoor reopening.
Yep. And I think that this is the slide that demonstrates that the most clearly, is where we are actually with our current licensed canopy capacity. But we can certainly take a look more closely at how people are changing when they do change tier.
Yeah, this is total canopy, not flowering canopy, just for folks listening. This is the utilized.
Correct. Okay, I'm going to move on to our retail locations, our areas of density chart. There's no new additions from actually our November numbers. We've had no increase here, total increase here since I think October. So I have not included the map because essentially we're the same here. I think one has shifted from in the queue to licensed, but overall we are looking at the same numbers here.
Do you know where the relinquished retail license was?
Not off the top of my head, but I bet we can get the answer right before the end of the meeting. It was not in an area of density, I'm presuming, since these numbers haven't changed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, so as long as everybody's ready, if you can wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that our licensing team will be able to provide us with an answer at some point. But I was gonna move into the next few slides, are just a summary of where we are with pre-qualification. Since this process opened up at the beginning of December, I thought it would be useful to take a look at how many folks we've gotten in for their pre-qualification application and interview and what the outcome of those conversations has been. So this slide just gives us the data here, the numbers of how many pre-qualification applications have been received by license type. So our tier 1 cultivation applications continue to be our most popular, followed up by our tier 1 manufacturers currently. So a total of 40 in the last essentially 2 months since pre-qual has been open. And then the next couple of slides is just I provide a little bit of narrative information about how these are going, specifically the pre-qualification and conversations that are happening between applicants and staff. So since December 1st, we've had 28 pre-qualification meetings with pre-qualification applicants. And the board will remember that the whole process of pre-qualification was really designed to help applicants better understand what is required of them to both obtain a full license, cannabis establishment license, and also maintain that license. So in that vein, we've seen some common themes in these conversations, which I've outlined here. The cost benefit analysis has been a big point of conversation. And what our staff are doing is really educating about the initial sort of upfront cost to obtain a license and then the future regulatory costs of maintaining a cannabis business to just help applicants understand how viable their business model is. Also, space limitations has been a big topic of conversation. Both licensing staff and compliance staff are participating in these conversations. So we've been doing education about space requirements so that applicants can either configure their space or reconfigure their space if they've gone that far in a way that's going to achieve compliance with their site visit and also maximize their potential production capacity. Business plan, I think that's been a topic of conversation quite a bit, helping licensees better understand how the industry works so that they can craft a business plan as a part of their full application. Some educating about products and the requirements around products, so product registration, white labeling, manufacturing, wholesale options, so that applicants have a better understanding about how they will get their product to market. And then timelines for licensure is another big topic of conversation so that applicants really understand what to expect for both the timing of their initial license, their full cannabis establishment license, and also what will be required for them upon renewal. And that will really help applicants be able to plan for both the startup of their operations so they know when they should really begin sort of paying their rent and getting their insurance in place and all of that. And also helping them understand early on how they can remain operational a year from now. If they're continuing to operate and they want to renew their license, we're educating people early on that you do have to get renewed each year. It's not a one and done kind of thing.
This is great. You know, I remember Massachusetts would do something very similar with their social equity applicants only. And it had the effect of a lot of prospective social equity applicants deciding not to get a license. Are you seeing any of that as far as you can tell? It's probably too early to tell.
It's a little too early for us to tell, but because I don't think there have been any pre-qualification applicants that have withdrawn just yet.
It did look like the most conversations have been around tier 1, though. Has there been any folks that maybe had big stars in their eyes that are like, okay, maybe I should start smaller? Does that make sense?
Well, I don't know if I have an answer to that right now. I can point out what people have like identified as being issues that maybe have interfered with their grand plan.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's a great question, and I just am not sure we have those details yet. But maybe we will at the next.
It's all qualitative right now, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. It's anecdotal at this point.
You may not have gotten to any of the retail pre-quals yet, but okay. Are you guys going through the areas of density with them as well? Just trying to like let them understand the competition and market saturation.
That is a part. That's definitely a part of what's talked about in the. So this slide just details some of the compliance issues that staff have identified in their conversations around pre-qual. So, you know, the other sort of point of the pre-qualification process is that it's designed to uncover potential problems with an application early on so that we have time, the applicant has time to correct that deficiency or to identify those, or for us really to identify those circumstances where applicant might be inappropriate for licensure because for one reason or another. And it helps us identify those issues early on before the applicant has invested significant resources into what is essentially sort of a non-compliant business model. So this is sort of a list of those compliance issues that have been identified so far, just in those 28 pre-qual conversations that have happened so far. So I think this is actually a really good demonstration of how well pre-qual is working, even right out of the gate. So multiple applicants, pre-qualification applicants, have been identified as folks that would be out of compliance with the one license rule. They are proposing working with business partners or having other principals and controllers that either already have a license, a separate license of the same type, or are simultaneously applying for a separate license of the same type. I think that there have been more than 2 of these. Co-location issue, there's been a proposal to operate 2 cultivation establishments in one location that would have exceeded the plant canopy limit for the largest open cultivation tier. So we were able to identify that early on before the applicant invested significant resources into that business plan. Presumptive disqualification. So we've identified applicants with presumptively disqualifying criminal convictions that could either disqualify or delay their full application. And staff is walking these applicants through the process of how to overcome a presumptive disqualification early on, so that doesn't result in a delay later on when they're fully ready to operate. Retail space build out specifications. We've had applicants who have retail plans that included non-compliant ID check and product placement locations. So that plan could be corrected prior to investing all the money and building out a retail establishment that would not have been compliant upon inspection. And then testing and product registration. And this is, again, I think goes really towards that cost benefit analysis that we talked about earlier, that some folks are coming in with a plan to cultivate multiple strains before they understand that there are testing requirements and product registration requirements that really would impact those plans. So I won't do
I have
this
a
every month. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have a quick question, and you may have said it and I may have missed it. So for folks who would qualify for social equity, are we moving them or connecting them with the technical assistance and the grant application during this process, or are we waiting until they're fully licensed for that?
No, we are not waiting until they're fully licensed. We are, anybody who's identified as a social equity applicant needs to go, would go immediately to the board at the next board meeting to be confirmed as a social equity applicant. And we're connecting those folks to ACCD immediately. No, we don't wait for their full license.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay. What I was about to say was that I'm not going to do this every month, but I thought it would be helpful to just have an overview of how they're going so far. And also, I'm also happy to do it every month if you would like, or give you any other information about pre-qual that might be helpful. Okay.
I have heard from at least a handful of prospective cultivators that it's going great for them, and they're very happy with the pre-qualification process so far.
That's fabulous.
Safe.
So I was going to move on to the compliance data, unless we want to pause here for any reason. Or were we able to find an answer to your question earlier?
You know, I thought about it. I think I know. It was probably because the acquisition of the Spice Environment. They had to give up their retail for the integrated license.
Okay, that retailer is in Brandon. Okay, so compliance data. Starting with a summary of the compliance work that's been done since December 16th. We've received a total of 9 new complaints since then. Compliance team has observed 2 product destructions as a result either of a compliance issue or a wrap-up of operations. Compliance team has undertaken 8 new investigations, the subject of which are listed below. So scope of licensed activity, advertising compliance, on-site consumption, an unlicensed establishment, employee misconduct, theft of product, and general compliance are all the new investigations as of mid-December. We've issued We've issued 3 notices of violation. One was about a security violation and 2 were relevant to employee misconduct or product theft. And we've issued 4 letters of warning, and those included compliance issues around retail record keeping, advertising violations, and operating without finalizing the licensing process and actually having their license issued. So next, I'll go into a summary of our advertising review. And I know that I mentioned, I think I pulled this from the slide deck the last month, but we decided to include it again because there has been a significant uptick in the number of advertising submissions that the team has received, which is great because I think it reflects that licensees are understanding what they need to do before they publish an advertisement. So just in the month of January, since January 1st, we've received a total of 41 proposed advertising submissions. And then we've got a breakdown there on the left of what those submissions were all about. Standard submissions, about half were standard submissions, 6 were resubmissions, 11 were requests for more information or sort of just a request for education around what the advertising requirements are. And then we received 4 that were multiple advertisements in a single submission, and you can see the breakdown there. The review outcomes that we approved 20, and that is our initial, like after an initial review, the outcome was an approval. 6 were initially denied, but you can see the asterisk there, which notes that of those denials, all of them were cured after being resubmitted to the board. And then let's see, 10 of those 41, we provided education or clarification. 2 were partial approvals, and 5 are still outstanding as of today. So that actually gives a good picture of what it looked like, how quickly we're responding to these. I think that we received 5 submissions just since Monday. So we are regularly replying to these within, I would say like 48 to 72 hours, and we're always replying to them within 7 days. And then finally, at the bottom right-hand corner there, you can see the reasons for denial, which are staying pretty steady. Primarily lack of audience composition data, or that the advertisement contains false or misleading claims. And then there were a couple that either the health warning was minuscule, or the ad offered some sort of prize or giveaway. So that's the summary of our advertising review work. And that is all I've got for you besides our staff recommendations for licensure.
And very quickly on a semi-related topic to what you just covered, obviously, we've seen a couple advertisements in Vermont-based newspapers for out-of-state dispensaries or cannabis businesses. Would you just, for people listening, explain how we kind of, since we don't have jurisdiction over those licensees from the newspaper, how we kind of talk with our states around us that might
Yes.
have control over those licensees?
Yep. So just as a reminder, we, the CCB has jurisdiction and authority over our own Vermont state licensed entities. We do not have jurisdiction over either, our newspapers in the state or licensees in other states. So what we do when we do see an advertisement for a cannabis establishment from another state is contact our partners in that state to inform them of the advertisement. And we have some good relationships with regulators across the border in New York and in Massachusetts. And that's how we handle it when we are made aware of those types of ads.
Thank you.
Generally, how quick does it take to get an advertisement reviewed and some sort of action taken?
Oh, you must not have been listening.
Sorry.
We have,
It's in there.
no, it's not, but I think I just said it. It's not listed here. But we always get to those submissions within 7 days. And I would say the majority of the time, we get to them in 48 hours to 72 hours. Especially if they are submitted and they are compliant, those like approvals, the approvals tend to be turned around pretty quickly. If the submission is a request for information, those can sometimes take a little bit longer, but always within 7 days.
Quiz you later.
Did I see a proposed change to the language around advertise? I was just trying to look for the bill number, but a proposed change to the language around advertising in the legislature?
No.
Not this year.
Okay.
I think we requested that the like authority for us to charge a fee for an advertisement review be struck, just to make it clear to the industry that we're not intending to charge a fee and we never will. Unless the legislature forces us to.
Okay.
Just,
Thank
we
you.
never had the authority to charge a fee. There was just a reference in the statute to a fee,
Oh, okay.
but we never actually had that authority or had a fee in statute. So a
Okay,
fee was
thank you.
contemplated at some point, but,
Okay.
okay. So if you are ready, here are your, staff recommendations for initial licensure. So these, applicants have met all of the requirements for their adult use cannabis establishment license that are in statute and rule. We have 4 this month. So we've got Green Star Hill applying for an indoor tier 1 small cultivation license. Atlas Cultivars also applying for a tier 1 indoor cultivation license. We've got Taconic Chronic who are applying for a manufacturing tier 1 license, and Hey Bud Collective applying for a retail license. And then the next several slides are the licensees that are up for renewal. So we've got 67 renewals for you this month, and I'm not going to read them, but I will pause on each one. And again, this report will be posted to the website by the end of the day, for folks to go and take a look.
And is this posted to the agenda as well?
Yeah, the agenda has all, I don't think there was any change from the agenda to the who you see here. So if you were on the agenda, then you are here in the report.
I was on the email last too.
Almost done. Oh, actually, no. $67 recommended renewals.
Great. Any questions for Brent?
Nope.
I'm done asking questions
For
for now.
all right, well, any discussion about any of those?
Nope.
All right, was there a motion to approve the recommendations?
I move that the board accept each of the recommendations as presented by staff in this meeting.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, all right. Well, why don't we just turn to public comment? And we'll start with anyone who joined by the video link. If you did, just raise your virtual hand if you'd like to comment. And then after we get through those, we'll move to people that joined by phone.
Okay, looks like the first person is Grayson.
Hi. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks for renewing us for another year. My name's Grayson Glosser. I'm the development director for Extract Vermont. Great to be back for another year. I was phoning in to comment about just the guidelines about plastic in packaging, and just kind of to maybe give my opinion just on maybe some suggestions and some feedback that we have as a manufacturer. We make a lot of different edible products in particular, and something it's been really difficult for us to have to really identify some solid packaging, especially because it needs to be child resistant, and that paired with the milligram caps has made finding packaging really difficult. You know, something that was working well was those safely locked pouches. And now with those going away, and I'm not sure, I'm not quite sure why. Just kind of being able, I kind of want to just open the door for a little more conversation on what drives the decision making on what's allowable as a plastic alternative and what isn't. You know, I remember hearing, you know, something of managing one of the previous meetings talking about how PLA is a common industrial compostable plastic, whereas PHA, which is what Humidico offers, is something that's home compostable, and how, you know, PLA, if it's put in a landfill, won't break down in a reasonable amount of time. And I think that's one good metric to measure by, but I think there's a few more that we could discuss, because something that I think, you know, that's one that's really important to me. I'm a synthetic chemist, and looking at something like a polyolefin, like polypropylene, polyethylene, it does bug me that those are just going to be persistent in the environment. And as they break down, they're going to generate microplastics. And that's kind of the other part of this as well, is that, you know, something like polylactic acid or PLA, while it won't necessarily degrade particularly quickly, it will break down into just lactic acid, which is a biocompatible, you know, pollutant. I'll put in air quotes, because lactic acid, you know, is very prevalent as a biological molecule. So, you know, having that consideration, especially because, you know, a 3-ounce glass jar is 90 grams, and, you know, we'll go through, you know, that shipping that from several thousand miles away, the environmental effects of that, plus, you know, any of the liners, a lot of pre-roll tubes come wrapped, you know, the glass comes wrapped in plastic, unfortunately. Just trying to have a broader consideration of what goes into that, because taking into consideration that, you know, how energy intensive it is to ship and recycle glass, it might be outweigh, you know, that environmental impact might be greater than that of something like PLA, which, while it will take longer to break down, it may not have that large environmental impact. And kind of the last little, you know, so that's kind of the material choice. And, you know, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about this. I am a pretty big nerd. I tried to tone it down there as much as I could. That's as much as I could. But the other part is, you know, food safety. There's a pretty stark lack of things that are able to be hermetically sealed, and particularly with confections, something like a caramel or chocolate, where moisture is going to drastically diminish the quality of the product. Like a caramel is hygroscopic and it's going to pull moisture from the air. Something really needs to be hermetically sealable, and something like an aluminum tin, they advertise that they're hermetically sealed, but they fail pretty basic water tests. And, you know, things that are even watertight are not necessarily airtight. So that's kind of just my little note on packaging, and that's something that we're struggling with as a manufacturer that makes a lot of different products. And just kind of giving my input on what, you know, the different avenues of plastic that get input. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. And it's certainly something that we're trying to take very seriously, and appreciate your input.
Okay, next up we have Jessie Lynn.
Hi, thanks so much. My name is Jessie Lynn Dolan. I'm the founder of the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association, also the president of the American Nurses Association here in Vermont. I'm a CCB vendor trainer for bud tenders, and I also run a free nurse hotline for consumers. Two things I want to quickly touch on is labeling and education. As I get more hotline calls, educate more bud tenders, and visit more dispensaries, it's glaringly apparent we need more labeling directives, transparency, and enforcement. What I'm seeing is packages that are dated over a year old. I'm seeing THC listed on oral and edible products with zero information as far as whether that's an isolate, distillate, or full spectrum. I believe you guys at the CCB are aware the drastic difference between product effects from both therapeutic and consumer safety perspectives. And if you don't, please help me provide some education for that to you. Seeing added terpenes listed, but not which terpenes they are. Terpenes can be serious allergens and need to be transparent, let alone the differing levels of euphoria, also known as intoxication, that they can bring. I'm seeing topicals with added essential oils, but not listed what essential oils are out there. My son, for example, is dangerously allergic to lavender and would end up in the emergency room if he were to touch that. I had one caller take 10 mLs instead of 10 milligrams of a THC product because of the labeling. And I had another caller think they had to take all 25 milligram gummies as one dose. So the lack of transparency is an absolute consumer safety issue and needs to be addressed. Not doing so will allow legislators and policymakers to not only question the program, but add stigma and more prohibitive laws, understandably so if we don't do better. Secondly, we're almost a year and a half into the program and there's been zero attention and focus on education. As an educator, I get plenty of feedback, including people who've taken other approved vendor trainings, stating they have barely any education on consumer safety and practically no up-to-date compliance information. I will continue to ask, even beg you to prioritize education for consumer safety, especially as we head into legislative session with policy changes on the line. I would love to be able to testify that the adult use program is doing what's necessary for safety, but to do so, again, I ask you to prioritize proper labeling and education. Please let me know who I can connect with in a timely manner, as Carrie and Nellie were working on that, but are no longer working with you guys. Let me know how we can expedite some of these serious concerns and needs. I'm beginning to meet regularly with Prevention Works, with the Substance Misuse Prevention Council, with the Agency of Aging, with the Department of Labor, and I'd love to be able to say that consumer safety is up to par and a focus of the adult use program. So please help that be a conversation we continue to have. There are some serious concerns with the lack of labeling and education. And lastly, just to quickly mention, I think some of the charts you guys put up were great. The product wheel listing the top products, cultivation wheel, but on the one product wheel, I would mention that there was not the percentages listed. And for someone who's colorblind, that makes it very challenging to understand the graph. So just to throw that out there as well. So I'd love to touch base with someone if you guys let me know who's working on education and how we can look at labeling to make that much more consumer safety friendly. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jessie Lynn.
Okay, we have Kirsten now.
Hello. Just, are you,
Oh.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Kirsten and I have a tier 1 license for my company called Bliss Point Chocolates. And I recently applied for a waiver to get a waiver for my application fee. The argument I made was that, you know, women as an economic empowerment license should be getting a waiver also. One of the main reasons is that I saw that tier 1 cultivators were getting a waiver on their manufacturing license. Is that right? Did I get that right?
No,
It's
we're
not.
only allowed to, because this affects state revenue, we're only allowed to waive application fees when the legislature authorizes us to. And they said only social equity applicants. And then even then, they've got a progressive waiver process where they have, after 5 years, pay the full amount of their fee.
Okay. I thought, was there something about the the cultivators getting a break on their manufacturing license? No?
Well, this really isn't a Q&A session, but maybe we can connect with you offline about it. But in general, we're not allowed to, this is one of the areas where we're not allowed to issue a waiver. You know, this isn't about kind of compliance with the regulation. This is a fee that's set by the state that we really don't have much control over.
Okay. All right. I just thought I had read that somewhere that meant that cultivators were also getting an extra like added, but I must be wrong about that. So sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next up is Tito.
You hear me okay?
Yep.
So I just want to say that it is getting crowded in the grow community, and it feels like it's time to cap those higher license tiers. That's it. Hopefully everybody's having a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Tito.
Okay, Jesse Spear.
Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I got on the meeting a little late. This is the comments section, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I just had one comment regarding product registration. So I'd just like to say, our compliance officer is awesome. Had a really good relationship with her. She's been more than helpful. I'm really happy with working with her, and she's doing an amazing job. But it seems like she maybe has a bigger workload, and I might be wrong, but talking to other companies and cultivators that are out of the Chittenden County area, their compliance officers might not have as big of a workload. And I know like she's gone out of her way and worked on times where she wasn't getting paid for overtime just to help out the cultivators, which is a big deal because we have a perishable product. And if we can't get it out in a timely manner, it hurts us significantly. And is there any way to either approve overtime or have different staffing or provide more staffing for product registration for the compliance officers that have a bigger workload or an area that has more cultivators or stores?
Yeah, thank you for the comment. And we are constantly evaluating those types of things, asking our friends at the legislature for more support when it's needed.
Okay, we have Bushy Beard Cultivation up next.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. I just wanted to piggyback on what Tito had said and was just curious if there was anything coming down the pipe with capping the larger licenses and if there was any plans, because like Tito said, it does seem like, the market is reaching a saturation point. So I just kind of wanted to piggyback on what he said and see if there was any plans in the future for doing something like that.
All right. Thanks for the comment.
Jane Lanza.
Hi, thanks. This is Jane from Family Tree. We're mixed tier 3. We do our sun-grown on the larger side and the small tier 1 for the indoor as part of that mix. And we manufacture. And we have been gratefully participating in the industry since the inauguration and adapting to all the changes. One that I'm particularly noticing is the amount of retailers who get their own cultivation and manufacturing license. And I'm just curious, from a cultivator or manufacturer point of view myself, if there is a direct avenue that you guys might see down the pipeline for direct to consumer from the farmer's point of view to catch up.
Great, thanks for the comment. I would just pause right here and just note that, public comment sessions are not Q&A sessions. Essentially, we can't make policy on the fly or deal with everyone's specific concerns. You can submit questions to the board, and we try to, in my opening comments or elsewhere, try and address specific questions or common themes that come up over and over again. And if you do have specific questions, you can certainly just reach out to, I think it's comment@ccb.org or something. It's info@ccb.org.
It's a portal on the website.
Okay.
So,
ccb.info.
The email address.
Yeah.
There's also a public comment.
but those are also, that takes the legislature to kind of authorize that type of license, Jane. So I would encourage you to talk to your elected officials.
Thank you. I am in that process.
Great.
That's
They
that's
do,
happening.
they do listen, I will say, like, they, not, it's 180 people, not everyone has the same kind of ability to move legislation, but your legislature will listen to you, if you're struggling.
Okay, Eli Harrington. Eli, you're muted if you're talking.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. With the discussion of possible event permits or any off-site sales, delivery or special events, I'd like to float the idea that a portion of those sales must come from independent cultivators. That if we are going to start doing off-site sales and off-site consumption, that we build in a niche specifically for independent cultivators, because I do see a lot of consolidation happening at the retailer level. And it is easier for a lot of these larger folks to just get a retail license than for those of us who are smaller to get one, until something like a catering license maybe exists in the future. So I just wanted to float that idea that as we talk about opening up new markets with events and offsite consumption, we in statute carve out some space for independent cultivators, so that way we don't see every retailer working every wedding only selling their own products, and that we've got a space there by statute, because I know there's a lot of good intentions, but capitalism going to capitalize, and we're starting to see that. So there will be an advocacy day at the State House next Thursday, the 8th. I hope to see a lot of folks there. People can email me or check our Instagram for more details, but we will be there the afternoon of next Thursday, the 8th. So a good time to catch up with other folks in the industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Eli.
Okay, Casey, you're up next.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Casey Carton. I live in North Hero, Island Craft Cannabis LLC, a Tier 1 mixed that is just on the cusp of going to market, so to speak. And I want to say thank you to everybody. I really want to, not only just with the state of Vermont and putting this together, but all the hard work from the entrepreneurs, the growers, everybody. I was born and raised in Vermont. I would be considered very small. So we're on like month 14 of being live here in this little state, and very quickly we're saturated. So I am going to sort of mirror that commentary about the larger scale licensures and ask for all consideration for the little guys, whatever that can be. And duly noted about reaching out to, legislation and so on. But thank you to you guys. And that's the comment I had today. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Okay, John, you're up next.
Okay, yes, hi. So I have two things. I'm just going to mirror what was just spoken about, the oversaturation of the market. The amount of product out there is exceeding the demand, boots on the ground kind of information. The other thing is I'm handicapped in a wheelchair, and during my initial inspection, I was informed by my compliance officer that a 3-foot handicap pathway was included in my square foot canopy. And, and one of the things that she had told me was that, the plants are going to grow into the area. And I said, well, no, I can't have them grow in because I need to get through there with a 3-foot wheelchair. Some people can turn sideways and walk through. So I'm hoping that there's like maybe in the future some sort of waiver that somebody can fill out or apply for if they're in, an immobile situation where, I'm going to take up more of a pathway or a square foot of my canopy, like a 3-foot aisle down the center that's not included. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Okay, Jody, you are up next.
Yes, hi, my name is Jody Horner. I'm calling from Vermont Greencastle Reserve. We are a Tier 1 cultivator in Johnson. We had manufactured some product, hash infused, 2 harvest lots ago, and we still have not found approved packaging for that harvest lot. There is a waiver currently out there for glass or other non-plastic jars with metal, wood, bamboo lids that utilize a plastic or rubber gasket. I wrote a waiver to have that expanded to hash infused, and it was rejected. Currently, that waiver only applies to cannabis flower, and the real issue is child resistant. So we need those plastic threads for child resistant. We don't need them for regular cannabis flower. So this waiver doesn't seem to do anybody any good. Furthermore, and I'll end here, the suggested websites on the packaging guidance page, I've contacted all of them and none of those were approved by the CCB. So it's a real struggle to find child resistant without plastic threads, and the waiver request being denied makes no sense because we really only need the plastic threads for child resistant. Thank you.
Story.
Nick. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey everybody, this is Nick with Emerald Visions. Thanks for everything you all do, and just wanted to kind of echo the statement of what several other cultivators said about the crowded, flooded market that we're experiencing right now. It's, I don't know, we all keep hoping that it's going to get better, but I don't know, we all thought that it was just like kind of a end of the year. People didn't want to add any more to the inventory in December, but this is all, it just keeps getting pushed on week after week, hearing the same thing from a lot of our partners, just saying like, I don't know, they just have way too much flower, and most of them are saying even that 12 cultivators are going through their door every day and they're having to unfortunately turn them down. And these are all, there's quite a few people in desperate situations. And I know I'm not the only person that really is feeling the pain right now of just how saturated the market is. And just imagine if this would have been an outdoor year that was not a complete disaster, and probably would have seen twice as much saturation and even more people not renewing. But yeah, I know that this is probably not even within the guidelines of the CCB to do too much about it. Probably more of a legislature change, but I don't know. I just kind of wanted to let everyone know that they're not in this alone, that everyone's struggling. To keep your head up, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Looks like that was our
Anyone
last
else?
comment.
Yeah, can I speak?
Okay. Sure.
How are you guys?
Good.
Randy from Doye here. I just wanted to, echo what Nick said and a couple other people. The market is very saturated at the moment. And I'm hoping that you guys will take into consideration licenses that are being issued going forward and canopy space that's allowed at the moment. Try and find that like happy medium where everybody can survive that's in it right now. It's financially debilitating trying to pay, $10,000 power bill just for a tier 1. I can't imagine tier 2 people and higher that are having a hard time selling product right now. Granted, the tourism right now is bad because of the weather, but like he said, with the outdoor, had we had a great year, it would be pretty crazy right now. And nobody seems to know when product's going to start moving again. We're just barely moving a quarter pound here and there. Normally we move, 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds every week, every other week, and just sales have been pretty stagnant right now. So I hope that you guys take that into consideration with the available canopy and how many more licenses that you guys are going to issue going forward. And that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy.
Dave, you are up next.
Oh, thanks. I just want to kind of throw in sort of like from the other side of that equation, we love Randy's stuff, by the way. It's fantastic. Nick's too. Lots of y'all make great flower. This is going to happen every year. We're going to hit the low point in the market right around now. And that's going to hit at the same time as the outdoor stuff is hitting the market. And that's really dangerous, but unavoidable, just because of the way the calendar works. And so, I would just urge everyone, not to panic, and, to the best you can, hold on. But also, there is actually a bill that's being considered now in the legislature. It's a short form bill, so there's no details. It's just a discussion around sort of like a license moratorium potentially. And I think, if folks are interested in that sort of thing, and I'm in very active listening mode on that. If folks are interested in that sort of thing, really urge them to reach out to their reps in the House, and talk with them about that, because it is, it is actively being considered in the legislature. And the CCB, we can argue over their legal authority to impose caps on all sorts of license types, or just what they've already done on certain tiers and closing and opening. But I think certainly getting some direction from the legislature would help Julie, James, and Kyle make the right decisions as well. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, up next is Liz.
Hi there, I'm Liz from Green Mountain Gourmet Cannabis Company. We make all sorts of unique edible products, from olive oil to peanut butter and strawberry jam. And we've noticed, oh, I'm so sorry, my dog in the background. But we've noticed that another company has had some products that have gone bad, and there's the new interbatch testing for every 3 months for potency. And I'm not trying to be a business owner shooting myself in the foot of adding more cost, but I think that adding in some parameters for food safety would be really important as well. We take it really seriously at my facility, but having interbatch testing for making sure that there's not any bacterial growth or anything going on in those batches is super important.
Yeah, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? If you join by video, raise your virtual hand. If you join by phone, you can hit *6 to unmute your phone.
Yeah, this is Nate from Pressure Lab Cultivation. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, make a couple points or comments to what Tito and Nick was saying about the market saturation. Me and a buddy of mine were looking at some numbers, John, who made a comment earlier, and just with the tier ones, with outdoor and indoor, 85% of the state's projected canopy needs are already met just with tier ones. So it is saturated. I think that it's safe to say, I think most cultivators would agree that cultivators in the state right now are sitting on, cultivators right now are sitting on literally metric tons of processed cannabis in Vermont. So there are literally thousands and thousands of pounds sitting that aren't moving right now. So I think that considering capping, in my opinion, all licenses for the time being, I think would be a great move. And then the other comment I wanted to make is about the fact that somebody else, I think with a Family Tree, brought up a point that, small cultivators need, every advantage we can get, especially going, to be honest, even tier threes. But the fact that we can't have keef or dry sift or whatever you want to call it as cultivators is kind of crazy to me, because it's actually a byproduct of trimming. So when we trim, most companies use trim bins or some type of trim bin that has a screen on the bottom, and it collects the keef so you're not wasting product. So we're a small company. We're a mixed tier 2, much like Family Tree. We only got to tier 2 so we could grow more outdoor plants Our indoor is only 480 square feet. We're finishing up a second room, which will be another 150 square foot. So we're under 1,000 square feet. But we are currently sitting on keef that we can't sell and we can't do anything with, and we're just expected to, I guess, throw it away. And to me, that just is a little crazy because, you know, like Jane was saying, like we need every advantage we can get in this market, and being able to advertise infused pre-rolls would give us the opportunity to, you know, charge twice the amount that we're charging for a normal flower pre-roll. And as I said, it's a byproduct. So I had a dispensary owner at our farm recently, and she saw a bunch of keef and said, I would love to buy that from you. And I said, well, I would love to sell it to you, but I can't. So I just wanted to bring
Nate,
it up.
Yeah, I would, you know, I'm not gonna give any sort of legal advice on the fly here, but I would just look at Act 65 from last year, 2023, because the legislature changed some of the allowances of what cultivators could do. And it's not about making infused pre-rolls, but it is about, you know, certain products that they're allowed to possess and sell. So you just want to probably look at those changes that were made. And it might give you some guidance on this issue.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, that's it. Those are the only 2 points I wanted to bring up. And thank you guys for all your hard work. And I will add just another thing about
It
our
sounds like
compliance
it was.
officer. Yeah, our compliance officer is very busy. So I would just agree with what he said, that maybe trying to get her some help or approve overtime would be awesome. And that's it. Thank you guys.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have Chris Vickers.
Hey, this is Chris Vickers, Rootland Cannabis, Hickory Hash and Bud. I'm a mixed tier 1, and I'm also a tier 1 manufacturer. And yeah, it's been going pretty good. I totally agree with what a bunch of people are saying, that the market has kind of hit a saturation level. And you know, I got a manufacturing license because I needed to be able to process my trim into hash, and that's just part of what we all do as cultivators. And it really needs to be added as part of a cultivation license. It can be a mixed plus or a tier 1 plus or something like that. But yeah, we all need to have the ability to do what we do with our product, instead of having to have, you know, a mixed license and a manufacturing license and all this renewals that are really aren't even renewals. They're more like reapplications. The process is no easier to do it a second time. And you know, at that point, I think that having a license that's good for 2 years or 3 years would be a real advantage. It would free up a lot of your staff there. It would make things a lot easier for us having to redo this over and over. I mean, we didn't get into this to do it 1 year. We're in it, you know, so having to do it every single year is a real pain for us. I just want to, you know, just state that, you know, that's a cottage industry thing. And as a cottage industry business, we, you know, we like doing all of it. We like indoor, we like outdoor, we like making our hash. We want to make infused products, maybe some edibles. You know, we kind of want to do it all. So, you know, maybe coming up with some kind of cottage industry grouping would be the way to go for tier 1 and tier 2. You know, not bringing in material from other people, just working with our own material. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Okay, we have someone who's joined as guest. You want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. Just a way, so I'm backing that up. But only comment I have at this point would be that I wish you guys could do something. I don't know who's responsible for looking at it, but flavored papers. Flavored are not for kids. I mean, I don't know. It's no different than adding salt and pepper to your food. People like flavors. So outside of the cannabis having its own distinct flavor, especially if you got a good grower, you know, it would be nice to open that door up for the creative minds and let them have some fun with it while they're trying to make a living. And people will like it. I can assure you of that. So I really wish you guys would do something to help get the okay or the approval through to say, yeah, you can use flavored papers. I'm talking about like whether it be cigarello type papers or whether it be joint papers, flavored. You know, it's good bud, tastes great, but boy, you can do a lot with it. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for a public comment? All right, I will close the public comment window. Thank you for all the comments. You know, legislature meets for a very short amount of time each year, and I think a lot of what you're hearing, a lot of those repeat comments and themes are things that we really don't have a lot of control over. But there's certain things that we do, and so we always appreciate the comments and the advice and the kind of, you know, boots on the ground kind of vantage point that you provide. So keep the comments coming. Thank you. Certainly reach out to your legislature, your legislators, both House and Senate, and let them know how you feel. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.